character analysis of Leopold Bloom. So the Bloom is the central character, we would say, in James Joyce's Ulysses. And as Ulysses is an adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey, Leopold Bloom is parallel to James Joyce's epic hero Odysseus, but in which and in which perspectives these two characters can be similar, and what is the attitude and what is the motive James Joyce wanted to convey through the character of Leopard Bloom. We would try to read out or some analyze a little bit about this. The first impression that one has of Leopard Bloom, Joyce's modern equivalent of Ulysses and also Joyce's Wandering Jew, is that Bloom is as much of an outsider in Dublin as his prototype were in their peregrinations through various foreign countries. So Odysseus and Odysseus' Latin name is Ulysses. So Ulysses in Homer's The Epic Hero, he had several journeys towards several cities and several parts of this world, while at the time of returning to his kingdom Ithaca. In the same way, our hero in Ulysses, that is Leopold Bloom, also traveled many countries. Not many countries in direct sense. Actually, he has traveled the many places in Dublin, Ireland, in the city and the city life. And through this journey, Ulysses, James Joyce has tried to penetrate the Dublin life in reality. Stephen's discussion with the anti-Semitic deity in Nestor foreshadows the treatment that Bloom is to receive through the dead. In Hades, Bloom is patronized by the three other occupants of the carriage that is headed towards Glasnevin Cemetery, and in that episode, the conciliatory views of suicide stunned the conservative Catholic Dubliners. We know that in Dublin there was the uh, religious uh, conflict between two religious groups, that is Roman Catholicism and Protestantism or Puritanism. But our hero, Stephen Deplaners or Leopold Bloom, is not in a position to support any of the religious groups. So he is a revolutionary. He had a revolutionary attitude towards the religious perspectives the people of Dublin had at that time. And not only that, he is Leopold Bloom was not very happy to the orthodox behavior of Roman Catholic Church in Dublin. And the same view we had in James Joyce's life when we had been discussing the biography of James Joyce. So Leopold Bloom, when he attended the funeral of one of his friends, then uh, the other person, he didn't, they didn't take Leopold Bloom very friendly attitude. They thought that it would be better if Leopard Bloom wouldn't attend the funeral. Still, Leopard Bloom attended the funeral, and also Leopard Bloom's father committed suicide. And in this regard, Leopard Bloom had a very liberal attitude towards suicide. And that liberal attitude in alternatively astonished the Roman Catholic believers who attended the um, funeral ceremony of one Dubliners. In Skyla and Cherry Pitts, Mulligan detects hint of, beside the repressed homosexuality, the Jew in Bloom's phys- physiognomy, and he wants Stephen away from him. In the Cyclops, Bloom, before fighting back, is degraded by the rapidly anti-Semitic citizen. There are many other indications of Bloom's alienation from home and from community, and in the novel. The last line should be elaborated. James Joyce's Leopard Bloom was alienated from his home, from his family, as the same way Odysseus or the Ulysses was alienated from home and his family and his kingdom. And uh, 20 years, Odysseus was away from Ithaca, his kingdom, his man, his son, and everywhere. In the same way, Leopard Bloom, the hero or the central character of Ulysses, the novel, here we see that Leopard Bloom had been living with a family, and his wife's name was Molly, but he is not. He is in the family, but he is not in the family in the truest sense of term. They had a son. That son was died early in its age. That means Telemachus was left 20 years away from Odysseus. In the same way, um, Leopard Bloom's son that was um, died in infancy, and that is more severe that Odysseus got his son Telemachus back after 20 years. But in this regard, Leopard Bloom didn't get his son back because their son had already died. And also the Orthodox Roman Catholic behavior and Orthodox Roman Catholic people living in in the city of Dublin all are not very much similar to the attitude when friendship grows for the mutuality of understanding. But in case of Rupert Bloom, we didn't see such kind of friendship between the people living in Dublin and his wife and the other community uh, uh, living in Dublin. So Odysseus was alone, and he was away from his family, kingdom, and son, wife, everything. But Leopard Bloom's alienation was more severe in that sense that living within the same family, he was alienated. He was very much alienated from the family. Most probably, you have watched the movie, and there you will see that the actually early in the morning, Leopard Bloom was preparing breakfast for his wife Molly and the cat. That means they had a very isolated life. And the last stage, when last stage of the novel, when the whole day Leopard Bloom returned home, and when they went to bed, and that is a very funny, as I have said it earlier, it's a funny novel, but towards the first representation of Dublin life, James Joyce was very much successful in presenting the alienation of public life. in some way, he satirizes the orthodox behavior, he satirizes the attitude. So when they went to bed, Rupert Bloom and his wife Molly, their head is not in one side of the cot. They, uh, their head is in the two different sides. So where Molly put her head at the side of Molly's head, Leopard Bloom put his legs, and vice versa. Where Leopard Bloom put his legs, where Molly put his legs. So you have understood the situation. So that is the situation of Leopard Bloom. So he is a keyless hero, as is Stephen, having left the key to 7 Eccles Street in his other trousers and having been afraid to retrieve it because he might disturb Molly. So Molly is Leopard Bloom's wife. So Stephen, a portrait of the artist as a young man, there you have seen Stephen was the central character. The central character is Stephen Dedalus in Portrait of the Artist. He lost his address and in some place he became a vagabond. But here in the same way, you see that Leopard Bloom left the keys of their house, that means 7 Ecclesiastes, in the other pocket of the trousers. And it means that he lost his address and he doesn't want to go to search the keys, thinking that it might disturb Molly, because Molly, his wife, at the same time, when he will be living out, uh, he Molly will be making love with his boyfriend in at the presence of or at the acknowledge of Leopard Bloom. So his name is mutilated to L. Bloom, L. Boom, in the newspaper report of Dignam's funeral. So early in the novel, we have said that he attended a funeral, and in the funeral, a report made by a newspaper, and that report was done that the name of Leopard Bloom was mutilated as L. Boom. That is also a disintegration and disrespect towards Leopard Bloom. And there is no room for him in the freeman's offices as Aeolus. And he is stuck at one point, and although accidentally by an opening door, even his greasy eyes, which Lydia Dawes, a barmaid at the Ormond Hotel, notices as Blooms passes by with sweets of steam under his arm, are enough to establish him as a figure of ridicule. And thus, integrity uh, and the respect. Odysseus, uh, well, in the last stage, the Phaeacians who helped Odysseus to took him back to Ithaca, they didn't know Odysseus, but Odysseus, when Odysseus said that I am the great hero Odysseus, the Trojan warrior heroes, then the people of Physician was so happy that yes, we feel honored that we have seen Odysseus with our own eyes. So they are very much happy to see Odysseus. Why? Because Odysseus had honor, and that honor is the great achievement of a man's life. In return, if we think about Leopold Bloom in the society of Dublin, anybody didn't respect Leopold. They say that this man, his father committed suicide. This man belongs to, um, uh, doesn't belong to Roman Catholic Church or faith, so he belongs to Jews. And in terms, the Roman Catholic, Orthodox Roman Catholic, they believe that uh, Jew are heathens. Their religious belief is not so good, and in some terms, they are heathens. That means a religious belief, a void of religious belief. So such kind of stigma and ridicule was attributed to Liverpool. That is the situation of Liverpool that we have noticed in uh, James Joyce's The Ulysses and the central character, the what? Bloom. Thus, there is a good deal of pathos in Bloom's portrayal, thinking of his own father's suicide while others condemned the act on the way of Glasnevin Cemetery. Bloom states they used to drive a stake of wood through his heart in the grave, as if it wasn't broken already. Again, Bloom thinks constantly during this day, June 16, of Bunyan's and Molly's adultery, yet he still manages to get through his wretched day. So, in the same day when Leopold Bloom went out for attending the funeral ceremony of Digham, in the same day, his wife Molly and Molly's boyfriend Bollian had adulterous physical relation, but still he didn't commit suicide. That means the hero will not surrender to their life, and still through the recent life, Leopold Bloom had been passing his days in Dublin, and the motive is that to satirize or to present the ironic Dublin life. Today, today, not think. One must feel sympathy for Bloom when he sits on the Ormond Hotel cart of the convivial group's enjoyment of Ben Donald's uh, rendition of the Croppy Boy, whose lyrics. Bloom doesn't bring some of his troubles upon himself. However, Anthony Ulysses Joyce clearly does not present a pleasant saint as protagonist. Bloom seems unable to speak in plain language, at least around Molly, and she is vexed by his definition of meta, metapsychosis as the transmigration of soul. Again, Bloom has a fatalistic habit of accepting many things that perhaps should not be accepted in closing his eyes. For example, to the fact of the Bolian's letter to Molly. So, Leopold Bloom had a belief in transmigration of soul, but his uh, view of transmigration is different from the Roman Catholic believers at that time. And so he is vexed by the social people. Still, he is very much fatalistic in that sense that the way he had been passing his life, then every day, uh, Bolian's later to Molly. So, to the fact that Molly's boyfriend Boylan wrote letters and in, in presence of Leopold Bloom, and um, which protrudes from under the pillow, and to his daughter's possible loss of her virginity in the near future. Also, Bloom doesn't seem to want any result to issue from his correspondence of Martha Clifford. Perhaps he would rather stand on a beach and masturbate as he does in Nausicaa, an act does he demand commitment. And noted, Bloom does a number of things to antagonize those around him and who are already only to willing to condemn him. So Bloom was fatalistic in attitude. Still, um, Bloom had to compromise with the situation that in presence of himself, Bloom had the knowledge of his wife's friendship or adulterous relation and the letters of with boiler, that is very much that is very much pathetic for Leopard Bloom. And not only that, the way he had been passing his days in Dublin, everywhere, the way Leopard Bloom will react and thought that the every society and every group started to condemn Leopard Bloom. So Leopard Bloom, James Joyce's Ulysses' central character, is something that is someone who got disintegration, he got disrespect and condemned from the other part of the society or the social people. Despite his faults, actually, Bloom also had some Bloom also do some good things in the novel. However, Bloom does perform such a remarkable number of charitable deeds in the novel. What are the charitable deeds? He becomes, in many ways, a modern Christ. He attends Dignam's funeral, for example, despite his knowledge that he will not be able accepted by the other mourners. Later, he visits widows to help her understand the life insurance policy. Ironically, he made Cunningham in kidnap pups for the purpose and was accused of being a defrauder of widow and children. And Bloom feeds Banbury one kinds of cakes to hungry seagulls. He pitied the starving daedalus children. He helps a blind youth cross a street. He goes to Dr. Horner's hospital to look in upon Mina Purefoy, who has lain 3 days in labor, and he stays after the birth to watch over Stephen, who thinks is being covertly made drunk by Maligan. In Nighttown, Bloom cares for Stephen, even though he must run to catch up with him. She accepts Stephen's money from the scheming Bella Cohen. He tries to persuade the soldiers not to strike in incapable of Stephen. And when Stephen is knocked down, Bloom takes him home, first stopping at a cabman's shelter to find some sustenance for him. But in deciding whether or not Bloom is finally a saint or sinner, one must realize that Ulysses is basically a comic novel and that Bloom is a very humorous figure. So Bloom is a character. He is not a saint. He is not a sinner. However, in the society, Bloom had got this recognition. Bloom suffered from contempt and ridicule by the people living in Dublin. Simultaneously, Bloom had did Bloom had done some charitable activities in Dublin, and that means he helped everyone in hospitals, in crossing the road, and even he helped Stephen Dedalus to at the last stage of the novel. So such kind of attitude, it means that Leopold Bloom is not a saint or not a sinner in the truest terms of term, but in between, James Joyce has presented uh, Leopold Bloom as a funny character, a character of farce, a humorous figure. He thinks nothing of slipping his kidney from Douglas into his pocket. He repeatedly walks in a circle to pick up his letter from Martha Clifford and is frustrated when Macaulay's chatter forestalled his reading it. He tries to follow the woods, mate of the Douglas heart cannot do so. So he did some charitable activities. So Joyce's portrait to Bloom then is one of the truly whole man, one who can enjoy defecating, urinating, eating fried kidneys, and contemplating water, and one whose sexual perversities fully explored in Sars and Penelope are balanced against the magnanimities of his personality. So, Leopold Bloom in uh, in uh, in James Joyce's Ulysses that he is a man. He is a common man like you and me. And in this, he had some positive side and he has some negative side. That means a common man who will be defecating and urinating and eating in the same way. So in Odysseus, in the Odyssey, Odysseus had the support of Athena, and he did some supernatural activities as well. That means, with the help of Athena, Odysseus changed his appearance several times to have his benefits. But here we see that Leopard Bloom is a common man. He is supposed to defecate and urinate everywhere. He eats the fried kidney, that means the part of a chicken body. So this is what we see Leopard Bloom in James Joyce's Ulysses. Indeed, in Bloom, Joyce's portrait God's plenty, a sometimes pedestrian man, but a person for whom the physical world does emphatically exist. So, with the combination of good and bad side of a human being, and this man actually serves the humanity, and for this reason, the Bloom, Leopard Bloom, is a common man like you and me, but for his good behavior, for his charitable activities to the society, for his fatalistic attitude towards the society. Though he is uh, not religious in the truest sense of term, but through his presence, that means humanity is helped. Humanity has been helped by the character James Joyce's Ulysses. So that is the character analysis of Leopard Bloom. So we see another character in this novel that we will analyze. That is Stephen Daedalus. And in Homer's The Odyssey, we had a character that is Telemachus, the son of Odysseus. And here we see another character that is Stephen Daedalus. Stephen Daedalus can be parallel to Homer's The Telemachus. And in a portrait of the artist as a young man, Stephen was treated with a boy, irony and sympathy. Joyce admired his young protagonist battle against orthodoxy, but he also found Stephen's intolerant cynicism a bit pompous. A book in book 5 of a portrait, Stephen became a mock Christ figure, teaching his gospel of aesthetics to bold and sometimes giving apostles. In Ulysses, Stephen is a more human figure than he appeared to be at the end of the earlier novel. So Stephen Daedalus, the same character we noticed in James Joyce's another novella, short novel, that is a portrait of the artist as a young man. There, Stephen Daedalus was orthodox as well and also cynicism. But that orthodoxy and cynicism of Stephen Daedalus has been treated in a very ironic way in a portrait of the artist as a young man. But here in Ulysses, Stephens is a more human figure. And Stephen Dedalus, that is the continuation from one novella, that is a portrait of the artist of the as a young man. There we see Stephen Dedalus, and the same character we see in this novel, that is the Ulysses. It's a very big novel, and in this novel, Stephen Dedalus is very much a human figure, and that appeared to be at the end of the earlier novel. He has returned from Paris, his destination at the end of a portrait, having been summoned home by word of his mother's incipient death from cancer. Now he finds himself emotionally drawing as surely as his mother, literally drawn in her own green bile. In Ulysses, he sees himself as an Icarus-like figure, one who flew into high and burnt his wings in the sun. And Daedalus, he parallels himself with the archetypal flying ape. So, in Ulysses, we see that uh, Stephen Daedalus is a very visionary figure, and he had some notion of thinking, and such kind of visionary attitude um, we see in Stephen Daedalus' character, just like Icarus. You know that Stephen Daedalus is a mythological man. That is Icarus. That is derived from Icarus. That Icarus he wanted to be great, and he got wings from a god, and he started to fly, fly, fly. And when he went very close to sun, with the excessive temperature or heat of sun, Icarus's wings got melted and he dropped down. So Stephen Daedalus in Ulysses has been presented like the Icarus character here. In Ulysses, Stephen is beset with many problems, some of them stemming from his emotional distance the from those around him who he cannot accept. Although he lives in the Martello Tower with Haynes, the Oxonian, that means, and with Buck Mulligan, a Dublin medical student. So Stephen Dedalus, initially of this novel, had been living in a tower house in Dublin, and that tower name was Martello Tower, and in the same room, at the top of the building, two mates has been living. One of them was Haynes. He is from Oxford City, England. That means the English people, and also uh, Mark Mulligan. He is the same person from Dublin, and Mulligan is a medical student. They had been living here, and Mulligan and Haynes has been compared with Odysseus, the suitors, the lots of the suitors. They came from the other parts of Ithaca to occupy the kingdom and to marry Penelope. So their intention to marry Penelope is not very much a symbol of love. However, they wanted to marry Penelope for the cause of political purpose. In the same way, here in this novel Ulysses, we see that Stephen Dedalus is not happy to live with these two persons, Haynes, one the people of England, and the Oxford, and another one the same people in Malika. And we know that the political relation between England and Dublin. So England had been trying to dominate Ireland for several perspectives. societal, religion, political perspectives. And in some way, the England tried to dominate and try to establish their own language in Ireland, Dublin. The people of Ireland had been thinking that England's attitude was very much similar to the attitude of the suitors in Odysseus. They want to overthrow. They wanted to overthrow Penelope and Telemachus and to be the king. In the same way, the Haines represent the suitors and the Bach Malikan also had the same attitude that he doesn't compromise with the nationalistic attitude of Ireland. Haines has bizarre nightmares and the keep Stephens awake. And Mulligan, with his quirks and the brutal treatment of Stephens, has usurped Stephens' place in the tower. So, in that place, as the suitors did in Odysseus, at the end of Telemachus, he meekly surrenders to tower's key to Mulligan and began to walk his own path. Compared to the physical, compared to the physical Mulligan, Stephen feels himself to be inept and weak. Stephen is afraid of water, symbolically baptism, while Mulligan plunges into life. In many ways, Stephen is physically withdrawn, fearing dogs and thunder, while Mulligan once saved a man from grave. The facile Mulligan can handle the visiting milkwoman in Telemachus, although he looks down upon her, while Stephen sits brooding upon the lost part of Ireland. Stephen's estrangement is also seen in his teaching at Mr. and DSC's school, where he doesn't seem to care really that his students are inherently and obstinate failures. So Stephen had been driven away by Mulligan, and what Mulligan likes that is disliked, that is disliked by Stephen. Then means Stephen is afraid of dogs and water, and that is symbolical attitude that he doesn't like baptism. Stephen's sense of abstraction of distance forces him to turn inward for answer. And it is through Joyce's presentation of Stephen's vexed physique, psyche, and soul, especially in Proteus, that we see his young man bewilderment over the changing protein nature of reality, divested of his former stringent religious beliefs, wishing to become a famous writer through sometimes doubting his ability to do so. Stephen is Proteus in searching for his origin. He imagines that the two old women that he sees on the beach are midwives. He projects an image of novel caught linking all humanity and ending with a belly without blemish. So the owners. So Stephen Daedalus here is a very visionary character. And when he saw two older men in the beach, and at that time he wanted to write something based on the universal human appeal, and this is his motive that always he wanted to be a writer, a great writer, and in this regard, see uh, his writing attitude should be the universal humanity. Stephen's ruminations lead him to feel great sense of guilt, which is augmented by his tender conscience, one that focuses upon blemishes and ignores verses. Stephen feels guilty for many things. He refused to pray at his dying mother's bedside. He smokes heinous tobacco, yet he treats him with disdain. he borrowed a pound from the theosophist George Russell and spent it on a prostitute as the eldest daedalus child. He abandons his starving sisters to the poverty which was worsened by an alcoholic father who spent his time in bars, and while the family barely survives. He led a false existence when he was a young, pretending so well that he was deeply pious, and he was singled out for training the priesthood. Yet all the time he was thinking of naked women. So Stephen Daedalus, his father Simon Daedalus, and the Simon Daedalus is a very wealthy man, and he is a reputed well-known person in Dublin. But Simon Daedalus passed most of his time in bars, and he is very much careless towards his children, the Daedalus children. And we see that Stephen Daedalus, he is working in a school, and he had a very economic constrained person in Ireland. But to this actually, Stephen Daedalus uh, uh, wanted to live his life, and he is a young man, but he is orthodox, but sometimes he has some religious uh, idea that he shared to the priesthood, the young priesthood of Ireland. Thus, Stephen's portrait wins a great deal of sympathy from the reader. With eyeglasses that were broken in June 15, Stephen sees physical reality and the outer movements of life through a myopic opacity. His salary from Mr. DSC is meager, and the tiresome headmaster uses his young instructor as a sounding board of his trite ideas. Stephen's concept of Shakespeare is treated with scorn in Scylla and Charlie Charybdis, Charybdis, and he is not invited to the literary get together to be hard or at the house of the writer George Moore on the evening of Bloomsday. He is patronized by George Russell, and who only reluctantly agrees to print Mr. Dease's letter about foot and mouth disease in his farmer's magazine. Stephen stumbles through the night town in an alcoholic rage and caused in part by the friends giving. So this is Stephen. His salary is very meager. He wanted to be a writer. He had an attitude, and he has an attitude towards Shakespeare's writing. And for this reason, he was not invited to attend the George Moore party. So this is his position in Ireland. Yet despite the pathos of his situation, the ultimate picture of Stephen in Daedalus is heroic. Mulligan may be the sure doer, but Stephen is the sensitive thinker. Stephen dwells upon the implication of sin, Bach ideas. Bach hides any possible guilt beneath blasphemies. Stephen did indeed suffer because of his mother's death. He wept alone. Stephen is the complex Prince Hamlet. Mulligan is more a Rosencrantz uh, than a true Horatio. Stephen, throughout Ulysses, is courageously pursuing the goal which he set for himself a portrait to break free of society's nets, and that is to break free from all the forces which inhibits the growth of the soul, and by implication the growth of the artist. So Stephen Daedalus is praised highly. That means always he wanted to be a writer, and for this reason he wanted to get himself free from all bonds, social, religious, and other bonds. For example, he refuses to join the national movement which was developing in Ireland in 1904, and political aspiration, as Stephen knows from the fall of Charles Stuart Peterson, led only to the dismal failure.
As I have mentioned it earlier, that is, Charles Stuart Parnell was a very great leader of Ireland. He was an epitome of democracy. But for the internal political problems, that is, Charles Stuart Parnell had to resign from the president of this party. And for this situation devastated Stephen Douglas or James Joyce very much. And for this reason, he thought that in Ireland or in Dublin, the great people will not be praised highly. And that was the attitude James Joyce had in his own life. And James Joyce left Dublin with that purpose that the great scholar will not be treated highly in Ireland. And he left for Switzerland and he published Ulysses in Italy, and he died in Munich, uh, uh, Zurich, Switzerland, and his dead body was buried over there. So this is the attitude we see of Stephen Dedalus in that novel, The Ulysses, written by John Joyce. Stephen is going through a difficult period in Ulysses, but Joyce's tone is optimistic. We feel when we need the novel that Stephen will probably find solution to this problem. So such kind of solution will be get such kind of problem will be solved successively. That was the attitude through the realistic presentation of the society through parts and comic incidents. James Joyce had been uh, very much optimistic in his view that one day such situation will be changed and Stephen Dedalus will be successful in uh, making a society where universal humanity will be uh, will be will be the topmost position of every human's action. So that is the analysis of Stephen